What common thing screams I make poor financial choices? Minder 1 said, I am a real estate agent and I work leads with my lender. We met this lady about 4 months ago who had bad credit and low income. We helped her identify what she needed to do to get better credit, and she said she may get more money soon. We follow up last week. She got a new higher paying job, but when he ran her credit, he saw she just purchased a $64,000 car. He told her things looked better income-wise, but the car payments take up pretty much all of your debt-to-income ratio. She said, I just can't win. I gotta get to work somehow. With that kind of car, I bet she gets to work real fast. My lender said the only house she will get approved for now is a gingerbread house. Pastum Gazik Face said, some people just have no idea how to live within their means. I work in lending and every single day I see clients who make a salary that exceeds 6 figures and they are tapping their home equity brokerage to consolidate 6 figures worth of credit card debt. I had a client last week that had over 20 credit cards they needed to pay off. Their minimum payments on the cards exceeded $3,000. No, just bonkers. Wicker Ottoman said, rolling car payments into your next car. I can't count how many people I know who traded in perfectly functioning cars they still owed money on because they needed something newer or outgrew their current car. I know someone who was paying $900 a month for a Hyundai Tucson that was listed for like $25,000. It ended up getting repoed. Platinum 777 said, it's called rolling negative equity, and it's a bad idea, indeed. I did this once. When I was several years younger, I bought a brand new 2014 Jetta Sportwagen TDI. 9 months later, I was at the VW dealership, and the new version, this time called the Golf Sportwagen, was out. I asked if they had one, and they did. And I bought it on the spot, a fully loaded TDI cell. Since it was so new, I paid MSRP, plus the taxes got rolled in. They gave me $21,000 for my Jetta Sportwagen that I owed $27,000 on, which meant that I financed in $6,000 of negative equity. And that is how, even with a decent interest rate, I ended up with a $715 car payment on a fucking Volkswagen. I made out lucky because VW bought back the Golf Sportwagen during the diesel scandal, and VW Financial canceled the remainder of the loan balance, but I will never ever do that again. Blusteriflidus said, seen a few people buy nearly all infant baby toddler cloths new from expensive brands. The most insane, a $350 Canada Goose winter jacket for a 4-month-old. Jacket barely covered the winter and then was too small. Oh, and nearly everyone I know that does this needs their parents' help each and every month to cover rent or mortgage payments. Endless Effervescence said, this is my sister to a T. She had a baby and most of what she was asking for on her registry, I already owned. I offered her my stuff for free and she turned me down. Why did she turn me down, you might ask? Well, it's because she wanted to go through the process of purchasing new stuff for her daughter. My sister married into a very wealthy family and has expected a certain level of gift giving. Nothing on her baby registry was less than $250. The level of entitlement is what ended our relationship. I haven't spoken to her in 3 years and I honestly don't think I ever will. August Prep said, it's a vicious cycle. I got caught up in it for years in my early 20s. It all started because my roommate went to jail for 30 days. I was a cook living paycheck to paycheck, then suddenly needed to cover the other $400 of rent. I went and got a payday loan. Next month when I got paid I paid it off, but then was once again a few hundred short. I made poor spending choices all along the way, but every other month I was going from one payday loan place to get a loan just to pay off the other payday loan place. Back and forth for quite some time until I reeled in my spending and started making more money. Poison's Revenge said, having experienced my parents divorcing, then watching Marriage Story, I am committed to signing a prenup that explicitly demands arbitration instead of going through the legal system. For the unaware, arbitration is a process wherein 2 parties will agree in advance on an arbitration judge who will be fair and impartial. In this case, we both separately present a full view of our assets, child situation, housing situation, debt, what we think is fair and want out of the divorce, etc. Then the arbitrator issues a ruling about who gets what. To ensure we both follow it, the arbitrator may withhold some fee only to be released to me if I were to follow my end of the deal. Ultimately, If either of us failed to uphold the arbitration agreement, it's legally enforceable in court. Once the arbitration is issued, we'd both formally go through the legal system on paper, but having already hashed out all debates via the arbitration agreement, the process is much smoother. Much shorter than going through the legal system entirely. Much cheaper as well. Much less of a headache in general. Poison's Revenge said, "Having experienced my parents divorcing, then watching Marriage Story, I am committed to signing a prenup that explicitly demands arbitration instead of going through the legal system. For the unaware, arbitration is a process wherein two parties will agree in advance on an arbitration judge who will be fair and impartial. In this case, we both separately present a full view of our assets, child situation, housing situation, debt, what we think is fair and want out of the divorce, etc. Then the arbitrator issues a ruling about who gets what. To ensure we both follow it, the arbitrator may withhold some fee only to be released to me if I were to follow my end of the deal. Ultimately, if either of us failed to uphold the arbitration agreement, it's legally enforceable in court. Once the arbitration is issued, we'd both formally go through the legal system on paper, but having already hashed out all debates via the arbitration agreement, the process is much smoother. Much shorter than going through the legal system entirely. Much cheaper as well. Much less of a headache in general." Hot Spicy Disco said, "Interesting, my wife and I just share finances. One of us makes significantly more than the other and we want to share the same lifestyle. We just have open discussions about the things we want and buy them if we can afford them. She wants leather-bound books and Comic-Con tickets. I want records and woodworking tools. We just set the budget for silly shit and don't worry about putting it in separated accounts. We've been together 16 years. Ragtime Sam said, "I rented a mattress from them for a semester in college. Was maybe a little dumb but it wound up costing less than buying and I didn't have to figure out how to get rid of it when I moved out. But these motherfuckers would not stop calling me afterwards. For years, trying to get me to renew or just selling random shit. I'd ask them to remove me from their customer list or whatever. The sales associate would say okay. Then I'd get the same exact call next month. One time when I asked someone she just said I don't know how to do that lol. I eventually moved to the other side of the country and told them that and they finally stopped." Ragnarok 314,159 said, "Usually when an E1-3 gets to their first duty station, they get a welcome brief that lays out expectations, reminds them they are no longer in basic training, and some of the standards of living. Along with this is a list of off-limits places that usually sell drugs. Most people think they can get a rub and tug, but it's usually selling shitty ketamine and knockoff steroids, and an introduction into not wasting your money. There are car dealerships that prey upon junior enlisted that are worse than strippers. They have we finance E1s guaranteed, signs all over, and will sell Private Joe a 2009 V6 Challenger with 150k miles for 29.99% interest." Worthmore said, "There's an old joke about that, but from the Navy. Before shore leave, the sailors were given a list of places they were prohibited from going to. Of course, those places were the first the sailors would look for. On the list, among the obviously strip club gambling drinking place names, there was Mum's Cafe. What the hell was going on at a place going by the name Mum's Cafe? The sailors took a cab, found Mum's Cafe, ordered coffee and pie, and nothing, absolutely nothing illegal or scandalous or dangerous was going on. It was just an ordinary mom and pop cafe. Which was the entire reason it was on the list, to bait sailors into going to at least one decent place in port." Worthmore said, "There's an old joke about that, but from the Navy. Before shore leave, the sailors were given a list of places they were prohibited from going to. Of course, those places were the first the sailors would look for. On the list, among the obviously strip club gambling drinking place names, there was Mum's Cafe. What the hell was going on at a place going by the name Mum's Cafe? The sailors took a cab, found Mum's Cafe, ordered coffee and pie, and nothing, absolutely nothing illegal or scandalous or dangerous was going on. It was just an ordinary mom and pop cafe. Which was the entire reason it was on the list, to bait sailors into going to at least one decent place in port." Itijira said, "This commercial is so legit. I know multiple people like this. The worst part is when they ask why I drive a Civic. Maybe so I don't have a panic attack at work when a collection agency calls. We know that wasn't your mom. We can hear it leaking out of the $200 headset you purchased even though work provides headsets for free. Because For Life said, I had a breakthrough a few years ago and realized that I don't give a flying shit what I'm driving. I need to get from A to B, and my requirements are fuel efficient, temp control, decent stereo, cruise control. That's about it. I drive a 2013 Nissan Versa that I paid $3,000 for. It's not pretty, has hail damage, and makes funny sounds. But it runs and gets me 37 miles to the gallon. If new cars are your thing and you want to have a nice one, go for it. It's just not worth the monthly payment to me. Shaki Shake 1 said, I'm a bankruptcy attorney. If you buy a car before you file, that's worth exactly what you owe on it. Usually you can reaffirm the debt and keep it. It's basically an agreement that despite the bankruptcy, you'll keep the car, make the payments, and still pay a deficiency if they have to repo it. If you buy a car in cash, the trustee will probably sell it to pay your creditors because it has equity. There are a million caveats that aren't worth explaining here, but many people buy a new car before they file so they can reaffirm the debt and have a car that isn't 20% interest after they file. Overly Adorable said, I was going to say similar. Someone I used to work with would spend around £10 on junk food and energy drinks on both breaks, and she'd apparently do the same on days off 2 weeks after payday, monthly. She'd say she only had £20 or less to lay her until payday, and what did she do during her first break? Bought her junk food and energy drinks. I tried convincing her that buying multi-packs of everything and keeping them in her locker or the fridge with her name on, but she thought that one-off larger payment would be more expensive overall for some stupid reason. Sturkedouper said, buying the latest everything. I have a coworker who struggles to pay rent and such but buys a new iPhone every time they release a new model. Edit. Lots of justification posts minimalizing something that every financial advisor tells you not to do. The iPhone thing was an example. I have seen other things clear down to someone replacing a year-old set of rims because a new style came out, all while being on the edge of eviction. Martinez said, we used to have people come into the garage, tires are slick, brakes are metal to metal or almost, knocks and noises while the inside looks like a landfill site, but they'd get out the car and ask for an oil change or how to botch something up cheap because they were skinned. They'd be wearing all designer gear, latest phone, covered in hair gel or makeup. Few of them even sent their dads down or they came with them, complaining we trying to rip them off. Straight up driving on hope, and if you turn up the stereo loud enough the noise goes away. Sushi and Fragile said, I feel bad saying this and I, in no way, am talking crap about anyone who lives in a mobile home. My husband's family is a family of 8. They lived in a 2-bedroom mobile home where they barely paid much in rent and had everyone squished 3 to a room, some sharing a twin bed. But each of the ones who could drive, which was like 4 of them, always had a car that was brand new and of the year. Not used or anything. Had to be brand new, no miles. They could have easily gotten a bigger place, but they never wanted to because they liked having nice cars and knew if they got a house or bigger mobile home they wouldn't be able to afford the new cars. Puzzleheaded Bear 513 said, spending student loans on anything other than tuition and basic living expenses. Taking out all the loans offered. I had a college intern once. He already had some practical sedan. He automatically took the maximum amount of student loans the financial aid office offered, though he didn't need that much for tuition and living costs. He gets his excess loan disbursement the first week of the semester, and goes and uses it as a down payment on the convertible, without even selling his old car. Why? I deserve to have something nice. He was sure he'd get a good job after he graduates because he'll have a college degree. Don't think he realizes he'll be paying interest on the car twice. Mike 7676 said, relevant story time. My late spouse worked at her small-town gas station beer joint for a couple years in HS. There was a troop of old retirees that would march in on the first of the month, get some beers and scratchers and spend that day glued to a seat. Now this was years ago in Texas, right as the state got the lottery going, so $1, $2, and maybe $5 tickets are all there is, plus the weekly drawing. When I say tickets, my wife would take their cash, unload a roll and hand them to these men. A roll was maybe 300 to 500 tickets. Every month, for years. Scorn Muffin said, Unironically, yes. They're fun if you just buy them on a whim when you have change burning a hole in your pocket. A couple quit for a little thrill and the odd reward, and some of the money goes towards good causes. Choose your scratch cards with this in mind. As soon as you make it a ritual, it probably stops being a fun little treat and become frustrating and addictive. Not always. Getting a lottery ticket every payday isn't going to lead to anything bad, but hopefully you take my point. Festive Squid said, I rarely buy scratch tickets. Used to buy 'em a lot, but not so much now. If I have a spare $2 that I know I don't need to save or spend on anything else, I'll stop into the gas station and buy one. Sometimes if I'm the only person in there, I'll just reveal the scanner code and pass it back to the clerk to scan without even playing. On a semi-related note, I had a scratch ticket that's called Cash for Life. Grand prize is $1,000 week for life, but in Canada life doesn't actually mean life, more like 20-odd years. Scratched it off during my break at work and didn't win shit. After I finished my shift, I stopped in next door where I bought the ticket and had the clerk scan it anyway to be sure. It must have been a misprint in the ticket because according to the rules of Cash for Life, I didn't win anything, but the scanner said $20, so the clerk paid out the $20. The 1983 Jedi said, I used Afterpay when my old shoes fell apart and I couldn't afford another pair. Had just gotten a new job after being unemployed for a while and funds were low. Worked on my feet and have back issues, so a Walmart pair wasn't an option. Got a decent pair and had a few paychecks to pay it off so I could still afford things like gas to and from work. It isn't always good, but it can be extremely helpful. The 1983 Jedi said, I used Afterpay when my old shoes fell apart and I couldn't afford another pair. Had just gotten a new job after being unemployed for a while and funds were low. Worked on my feet and have back issues, so a Walmart pair wasn't an option. Got a decent pair and had a few paychecks to pay it off so I could still afford things like gas to and from work. It isn't always good, but it can be extremely helpful. The Games for Megaming said, BBB but Moon. Are you telling me that I, a sound retail investor with 200 years in the industry, should get rid of the future? I'm waiting till $10 billion a coin, never selling until then. Sure, the price may be going down, but that's just hedge fund manipulation and not the market working as normal. I can't afford the basics, but each week I put in $8,000 to Doge, because the DD has proven so strong it will come next week. This is the internet, no one can lie to me, and hedge funds are going down. Look at these battle scars. Do you know how much effort it takes to get these? We're in a war, and we're winning. If you still think I'm serious.